There we go.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you so much, and welcome to Viarta Vitality, the podcast where we explore the intersection of real human stories, wellness, the paths that lead us towards our own healing for ourselves and the people that we love the most. I'm glad that you're here today. We have a truly special guest, as you guys can see. Aaron, thank you so much. And I want to say up front to everyone listening or to those of you watching, this episode might move you. It moved me just preparing for it. Aaron Weston is a co-founder here at Viarta Vitality, and most of you may know him as a leader in the wellness space there in Puerto Vallarta, but today we're going to get to know him as something else entirely. We're going to get to know him as a husband, as a caregiver, and as a man who walked through one of the most difficult seasons a person can face and come out on the other side without with something that he needed to share. And Aaron's written a book, right, Aaron, called Bright and Shiny.
Yes.
It's a true love story. I've seen the cover of this book. I can't wait to read it myself. It's about, obviously, the story of love, right? The story of
Yes.
loss, hope, and the fight for a better way. It's a story of 8 years, Aaron, that you spent caring for your wife as she battled through Parkinson's disease. So 8 years that changed him, it's taught him, and ultimately led him right here today. Aaron, welcome to the podcast. I'm so honored to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much, Nikki. That's very kind of you. Very nice words. And I am very, very happy to be here this morning.
Oh, well, we can't wait to get into all of this stuff that you've got for us today. And I appreciate you for being vulnerable today, sharing your story. But before we dive into the truths, right, on this episode, we want to cover 10 of the truths that you actually highlight in your book. But I want to start at the beginning, if I may. What made you decide to write this? Because that's not a small thing to do, opening up with something personal like that, putting it on the page for the world to read. What was the moment that you knew, I have to do this?
The moment came a while ago. I started to realize that I am in this space that's in healthcare. And my reason for doing and building this isn't because I'm a doctor, and it's not because I have any medical background at all, but it's because I went through something that a lot of people have gone through, a lot of people are going through now, and it's pretty horrific. So no, I don't have any medical or clinician title, but what I do have is I do have an understanding of being there and going through it and seeing the process and what that process looks like, and realizing that something needs to be done about the system that we're living in today. Something has to be done, because what's done to you, through the whole entire process, you're not walking away feeling like you're ever really getting answers.
100%. And a lot of times, I know you and I agree with this, we've talked about this actually, is the things that we go through in life, those are the things that shift us and move us. And so I know this is going to be a very moving book for yourself. I can't wait to read it myself. But in the book, like I said, you walk through 10 powerful truths that you discovered on your journey. And I want to go through each one together with you today. And I really do believe that every single person that's listening to this either is or knows a caregiver, somebody they love who's ill or will face something like this themselves. So these truths that you're giving today, you don't need to have a medical background to know how important they are. And so truth number one, man, let's get into it. The truth number one is
Right.
the love that no one talks about. Let's start
Yes.
with truth number one here. The love no one talks about. Aaron, I'm excited to read the book, but when I read the title, I kind of stopped and I wondered, what does that mean? The love that no one talks about. What does that even mean?
Well, a lot of people, well, most people at some point in time, they will fall in love. At some point in time, people will be in love with someone. And love is the most powerful connective thing that we as humans have. It's more powerful even than fear. And fear, of course, in our world is used a lot, but love is so much more powerful than that. And when you truly love someone, it is about the words that you say that to you when you're young and you stand up in front of everyone and you say, till death do us part, and sickness and health. At that point in time, your thought of what your future is going to be with that person is bright and shiny and
Mm,
beautiful, and you can see it. And then now all of a sudden, something like Parkinson's hits your family.
mm,
And the fact is that 31% of all couples where one of them has a serious disease like Parkinson's,
mm,
the other mate leaves because they are not prepared to deal with that. So, like, how much do you actually really love this person to stay with them? And you don't understand what it is going to do to you when it starts, because it doesn't start hard. Parkinson starts relatively simple with having to do other things to help a person, and then it just
mm,
continues on the just a downward spiral into it gets harder and harder, and you have to do more and more, and that person is able to do less and less and less. So
mm,
to stay there with a person and to show them that you love them, especially when that person loves you so much to tell you, I think you should leave me and go and have a good life somewhere else. I will be fine. I love you so much, you should leave because you can have a better life than staying here with me. But the truth is, when you love someone, you stay with them, and that's what you do.
yeah.
That's what you do. Mhm.
That gives me goosebumps because it is. People like to talk about all of the good things, right? They've got the highlight reel, but nobody talks about the things behind the scenes that actually are happening in our lives. And I can't even begin to imagine the loneliness that you must have felt. And that really brings us to truth number two. It's the loneliness of a caregiver. I think a lot of people assume that you're surrounded by someone you love, you can't be lonely. But caregiving, it's kind of a different sense of loneliness, right?
It is.
Mm,
You're really alone because you are giving to support to another person, and that other person is not able to give you any support back. So the support that they could have given you or and did give you before is now gone, and now you are in a position where you have to make all of the choices and
mm,
all of the decisions, but not even all the choices and the decisions, because now you have someone, it's their health, and so she gets to make her choice and she gets to make her decision whether
mm-hmm,
I agree with it or not. And then
mm-hmm,
well, I mean, other people can do as they wish, but I generally stayed out of it because I would have made different choices than what the choices that she made.
mm,
But it's her life and it's her health, and so she makes those choices. And
sure.
so then you're constantly dealing with the absolute needs of another person. I mean, their needs. You just can't. It's not a want. And then when someone comes over to help you on the few times when that actually does happen, wow, when they leave, you feel like you've been abandoned.
Mm,
And you know the person didn't abandon you, but you feel that way because someone came in and they helped you with your wife, and they did things that you no longer had to do any longer. And they seem like really, really small things, and they are, but small things add up, especially during the whole day. And it's basically just you, and no one can really understand what it's like for someone to wake you up 5 times a night and not get sleep for
mm,
years. People don't
right.
understand what it's like to have to actually lift another human being and carry them and lift them up and down, and to have to feed them and to have to actually clothe them and wash them and all of those things. And
Mm-hmm,
there's not really good support mechanisms for that.
right.
For most people, you're generally on your own.
And that's, I think, speaking of thinking, I'm just sitting here and in my mind, I would just, I'm sitting here thinking, like, man, I'm trying to put myself in that situation and feeling lonely, because you don't have people around you, or feeling lonely in all of those senses you explained. But there's a really deep sense of loneliness when you're laying in bed at night staring at the ceiling and your mind is going, that type of loneliness. And so it really brings it into perspective, doesn't it? Did you feel
It
like when you mentioned some people coming around, did the people that were around you at the time, did they truly understand what you were going through, or did you feel invisible in a way?
They didn't really understand, and I do realize that it's hard to convey. And then, of course, you don't really want to, you're not, especially as a man, you're not looking for other people's pity.
Mm,
But people would come over at times because Sasha really loved to swim. So they
mm,
would come over and they would take her to the pool, which for me was wonderful and fantastic because that means there's an hour and a half where I can just relax and let all of that tension, because every day is tension, and just let all that tension kind of go.
mm,
So people, I know they did understand that they were helping, but to truth. You really have to go through it to really understand what it does for you and to lay there at night with your eyes open and you're like, oh my God, how long is
Mm-hmm.
this going to last? But you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to leave the person and you love the person, but it's such a hard
Draining.
thing. And then
Yeah.
to have those thoughts in your head, like how long, and then you feel bad about having those thoughts, but it's just the whole thing about it is very,
Yeah.
yeah, sad.
Yeah, I get
Mhm.
that. And I think a lot of people too are like, well, we'll just put them on some medicine. Like, we'll go to the doctors, we'll get all of these things figured out. But at some point, truth number three for you that you know all too well is when medicine isn't enough. So, three so far, truth. Three hits close to home for all of us here at By Art of Vitality. When medicine's not enough, take us into that realization. What did it feel like when the conventional path stopped giving you answers? I know that there was a moment when that
Mhm.
happened, and you and Sasha were probably sitting there. Just walk us through what that was like.
Well, I don't know if Parkinson's is the worst, but end up in a place to where you've had several doctors diagnose you. And then finally someone says, I believe you have Parkinson's.
Mm,
So then you go to another city. So we left Puerto Vallarta and we went to Guadalajara because Guadalajara has the best doctors when it comes to Parkinson's in Mexico. And also, I would say how Parkinson's is done and dealt with here in Mexico is on par with anywhere else in the world.
mm-hmm.
It's the same quality. Now that being said, imagine walking into an office and sitting down in front of a doctor and you're saying, "Okay, what do I have?" "Well, you have Parkinson's." "Okay, and there's 13 different types of Parkinson's." "Oh, which one do I have?" Well, you have one of the 13." "Okay." And then there's three other Parkinson's-like diseases, and if you get those, you have about 6 months to live once you're diagnosed. "Oh, well, that's good. I guess I don't have one of those three." "No." "Okay, so how do we fix it?" "Oh, you don't." And
Wow.
then you're told without actually saying it, you're told what we're going to do is we're going to give you medication that's going to manage your symptoms for as long as possible. And like that is how everything starts. We have this medication that we can give you, and this medication can help you manage your symptoms. It's a brand new one, it's on trial, you can use it.
Mm,
Okay, that's nice. How good is it? We don't know. So there's stuff that's on trial, whether it works, whether it doesn't work, you don't know. And so everything that you do is you're hoping for the situation to change. And yet, even when you're being told, without being told with those exact words that all we're going to do for you is manage symptoms because that's all we can do, you're still
mm-hmm.
hoping that they'll be able to manage the symptoms to a point to where you can have a normal type of life.
And how long did that go on for? Like
The
before you
management.
guys, yeah, I mean, you were doing medications, just different medicines. And I know
Mhm.
you're talking about over 8 years, right? So at what point, and this doesn't really align so much with the truths that you're doing, but I'm curious for myself, and I think other people are as well. At what point do you start searching for other avenues when all of the medicine, well, and maybe did some of the medicine work for a bit and then stopped, or what was that like for you guys? When did you know when to make a shift?
With her, because she got Parkinson's when she was so young, it moves really rapid and it moves really fast and it's a lot more damaging, which we did not know that either. What we were told by the doctors is this is new medication that came out. If you take this medication, more than likely you will have no symptoms, but you'll have no symptoms for 6 months or 8 months or a year or maybe 2 years. In other words, we really don't know how long you'll have no more symptoms. However, once your body gets used to this drug, then you'll start having the symptoms again.
Mm,
Okay, what's the next more powerful drug that you have that's more powerful than that will work? Well, there isn't any right now, but just have faith in science. And these are the
mm-hmm,
words that were used. Once you get done in the next couple of years taking this brand new medication, there will be another better medication that will come out because we in the medical community and we as scientists, we're awesome and amazing. We're always coming out with, and that didn't happen. New drugs did not come out.
mm,
New drugs didn't happen. So then she goes from taking a drug which makes her better for the most part.
mm-hmm,
Didn't really help with sleep, didn't really help with her stiffness so much, so she would have to take different drugs for that.
mm,
But then very soon those drugs didn't work. And then it's, well, let's cut open your brain and put some metal rods in there that will stimulate your brain. that will help you with your symptoms. Again, it's just helping with the symptoms. And it was a very, I'd say, the window for drug use. And then that operation, we're talking about a period of maybe 3 years. That was it. So there was dealing with it. Then it got a little bit better. And then it just did not work. And so then we did the deep brain stimulation. And then that lasted for about, I'd say, 7 or 8 months. And then that didn't work. And then you're back to using that in medication, which didn't work.
Right. Well, I think that takes us to truth number 4, the alternative path that we wish we knew and took sooner. What did that path look like for you? And what do you wish that you had found sooner specifically?
So I had always believed in more of a holistic way of health. That's how I was raised. My parents they weren't anti-medicine, but they believed that your body should be doing most of your fighting and healing for you, and that you shouldn't be taking antibiotics unless it was absolutely necessary. And you shouldn't be taking regular medication unless it was absolutely necessary. And they were very much into the normal, healthy things that humans should be taking. And so I've always believed in that thought and understanding that the human body is a lot more powerful and a lot more resilient than what we've been told, which is that we're weak and that we're frail and that we need someone to help us all the time and that there's another person doing it.
I mean, it makes sense.
I didn't know anything about stem cells. I didn't know anything about exosomes. I didn't know anything about those type of things that were there. I did not realize what they were. And so we are sitting down and we're talking to a group of doctors in my house. And honestly, they're even saying this woman might not even have Parkinson's. It could be some just neurodegenerative disease, which is what Parkinson's is. In other words, I am now in another space with different doctors who are saying, well, you have Parkinson's-like symptoms, but you might have something that's totally different. In other words, we never even got a clear diagnosis that she even actually had that disease that's Parkinson's. But it was being dealt with as Parkinson's, and it was Parkinson's symptoms, and it was Parkinson's medication. And we had an opportunity to give her some stem cells, and we did. And they were doing it as a trial for us. And what we didn't realize about stem cells, because it's not used so much, we looked like she had a period of steep decline after she took the stem cells. And we were going, well, I guess nothing worked, and I guess this is it. But a lot of times that will happen with stem cells. You'll have effects. And of course, because of how sick she was, the effects looked way worse than what they actually were. But then after about a week or so of adverse going down, I think she's going to die. She just climbed up really, really quickly. I mean, she just flew. And now all of a sudden we sat there and we said, wow, that's fantastic. I think stem cells could work. But the problem is we had already spent $100,000 plus on everything that we had done, plus to have that deep brain stimulation, the DBS surgery. That's 100 grand, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's how much it costs. If we could have taken that 100 grand, put it into stem cells, I now believe that I would still be here with my wife. I'm not saying that she would be cured or not have Parkinson's or any of those things, but her quality of life dramatically improved. And I believe that if we had continued to do stem cell therapy with her, I would have had enough money to do it where I believe that there would have been a significant improvement. We would have done things a lot differently.
Yeah. Well, I think it leads us right into truth 5. This is just flowing. It's the system doesn't teach you this. Elaborate on that. What is this chapter about, or what is this truth about?
Our systems are failing because our doctors are being trained to offer medication. In other words, they're being trained to offer help with your symptoms, and they're not trying to cure the actual problem. And that's true with everything. You can say it's true about the flu shot if you want to. Why do you have to get it every single year? What's the issue? You can't cure a flu. Okay, I guess you can't. So now it's like you really can't cure anything. Now you're being told with lots of different diseases that are coming down the pipe that all we're going to do is we're going to manage your symptoms without actually telling you. When you're smart enough to understand it and look at it, then you see that the doctors are not able to help you. It is a system that has been set up, and it is a great system for making money because it's called an industry. But how is your health an industry? How is it something that you should be making money off of it? Because in the end, if you don't have any money, you don't get health care. Like your health, there's a monetary value to your health.
Yeah.
And so you end up that you realize you end up in a system where you have a specific type of monetary value. They look at you and they see who you are and they guess how much. They won't even tell you you can get deep brain stimulation unless they think that you have enough money to be able to get it. They might tell you about it, but they're looking at you and what they know you have, and they're doing is they're saying, how much do you think we can get from these people and for how long?
That's not a
And
comfortable place to be.
it's not.
Yeah.
And when what they have done starts to fail, the doctor does not want to talk to you. I have someone who's desperate, who wants to live, who cannot believe that I just spent all of this money to have all of this stuff done to me. And then not only did they put it, how they put everything in, going back and you're looking at it and you're saying, wow, I should have done things differently.
Mm.
And then that person who is a doctor literally does not want to pick up the phone and talk to you because they realize that you are not a feather in their cap. They realize that you are not a person who they have helped to live for an extra 10 years and look at how great they're moving and look at their quality of life. No, you're exactly the opposite. And then now that person literally did not want to have a telephone conversation. And that is literally what your job as a doctor is supposed to
Mm.
be, is to be there for your patient and to help them and to comfort them and to provide them with the best knowledge and understanding that you can give them. And then they
Mm-hmm.
realize that they really can't give you anything. They really can't. And then you realize that that white coat and
Yeah.
that white building and everything in there that looks so clean is not a place of healing.
Mm. I know that's one of the reasons that we're all so passionate about Viarta Vitality and what our mission is and the story behind this thing. And what a scary feeling to pick up the phone and call somebody, the only person that you think can understand what your wife is going through or you yourself are going through, and to not get a phone call back. I think to me there's a lot of guilt. I would hope there's some guilt behind, the doctors that couldn't support. I also want to give them a little credit too, because they're only taught what they're taught, right? You and I have had
Sure.
long discussions about this. So it's
Mhm.
almost embarrassment, I would think too. Like, I don't know what to say to these people. I am embarrassed that I can't help them. So I think there's a
Mhm.
myriad of things that might go through their minds, but to not answer a phone call, I'm really sorry that happened to you guys. And I know that there's people listening to this podcast that might be going through that right now. They may be searching
Mhm.
the internet for answers, they're coming up short. And that's in a moment where you just kind of feel broken, right? And that's truth number 6 is the moments that break and build you. And I just want to sit here for a second, Aaron, because I think that this is where there's so much of the raw humanity of your story. I think that's where this lives. Can you share a little bit? And again, like without having, you don't have to share more than you're comfortable with, but one of the moments that broke you and then maybe one that rebuilt you through this whole experience.
Well, I mean, there were a lot of breaking moments.
Yeah.
There were a lot. There were several of them. There was a moment in the beginning when you realize that the person that you love is going to have to need help for the rest of their life.
Mm.
That it's going to come from you. That is an incredible amount of responsibility. And then as things progressively get worse, then you get broken with the thought of, oh my goodness, how can I even do this? Because you're then asking yourself how, and there are numerous times where I said, oh, you do not understand how much I just cannot do this. I cannot. Yeah, I got wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, but you just woke me up at 4.
Mm.
Okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm saying the words, I can't do this anymore while I'm doing what I'm being asked to do. And
Mm.
I'm literally just breaking and dying all of the time. And then realizing that this is what your life is going to look like for an indeterminate amount of time. And then you just have to assess your situation and realize that this person would do the same thing for you and realize that it is your responsibility. You love this person who said those words, and you get to do that. And so those are lots of breaking points. They happen a lot. They happen a
Mhm.
lot because they happen a lot just doing a regular, getting in and out of a car, like to have to physically lift someone in and out of a car and into a wheelchair. So, I mean, your breaking moments are lots. There's lots of points where you just break down. You can't do things anymore, where you
Mm-hmm.
literally just can't. And the greatest point came for me when I had fought for so long and I had enough money to hire qualified help here, and you're in Mexico, so the price is less. But still, even though it's help, the amount of help that you get is it's never really truly quite enough. And it doesn't take away the fact of what's happening in your house. And I had gotten to a point where I had dealt with it for such a long time. It was 8 years. At the time, it was the seventh year.
Mm.
And I got to a point where I completely gave up. I said I've done enough in order to have enough property, to have enough money coming in so that she'll be able to be taken care of. And my son, I guess he'll be fine. He'll be okay. He needs to grow up, which is another thing that's not talked about, because that boy, from the time he was 14 all the way till now, doesn't
Mm.
have parents. And that's
Mm.
another thing that's not talked about when you have a disease that affects a family and you have children. He literally did not have parents for the last 8 years of his
Mm.
life. He has never had
Mm-hmm.
parents because my sole focus was on her. And of course, she couldn't focus on him. And I got to a point where I'd given up and I was ready to die. I had gone through so much for so long, and I couldn't physically, mentally, and emotionally do it anymore. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really have the help from her family or anyone else to have that type of support. And so to have not have that support is, yeah. I got to a point to where I just said, hey, I can't do this anymore. And
Mm.
someone offered me some psilocybin therapy, and that literally, even though I still had to, it was another year, but that psilocybin therapy took away all of my depression. It took away
Mm.
all of my negative feelings, and I was actually then able to come back and have a much better attitude and be much more happy with my
Mm.
wife in that final year, because I had done a therapy that had been able to get rid of all of the negative aspects and thoughts and feelings that I had. And I went
Mm.
from being fine dying, instead turning around to start building this company. And as I'm sitting there as like a rejuvenated, a new person, and I'm
Mm.
sitting down there and I'm working in the bedroom with her while she's
Mm.
watching her stuff, and she's, yes, please build this. Yes, build this.
Mm.
Yes, do it. Yes, I want to be a part of this thing that you're building, that you're growing. She definitely did not see herself as declining during those times.
Mm.
And so that gave me a lot of hope at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I could see how that would build you up, build Sasha up, and to launch this book, Aaron, and write this, not only because you know that people need it, but I think in a way her story lives on and her story inspires so many people. And I had the privilege of meeting Sasha, and you love her at hello. You really do. And, let's just keep going. I could get emotional, but let's just keep going on this. Truth number 7 is I'm interested to see what this is about for you. The guilt that never leaves. Expand on that with truth number 7.
Well, you can't. So the way I looked at things when she first started getting sick, and I didn't understand what was happening. And then I didn't treat it as it was very serious. And
Okay.
then when she had the diagnosis, how I view life is never that the sky is falling. It's like, okay, well, that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, and if the sky is falling, I think we'll be okay. That's always my point of
Uh-huh.
view, is like, well,
Yeah.
we'll be able to dodge it enough. I think it'll be fine. I generally have had a pretty optimistic attitude towards things in my life, and that you can get over anything. And that is what I always said to her. But I did not always do everything that I could. I didn't do everything I could have done. I literally
Okay.
didn't. I did not do everything that I could have done. There was more that I could have done. I could have helped her to understand. I left it up to the doctors to talk to her to make her own decision about what medication she should take and how she should
Mm.
take it. And I felt that I shouldn't be that involved because it's her life and she needs to make that choice and decision. I don't want to make a choice and decision. But
Mm-hmm.
now looking back, I should have given more input into it. And the ever-present thought and feeling that is always with you after several years is, when is this going to end?
Yeah.
And it's hard to have those two different thought processes and feelings that are in your head, which is, I really love this person, and well, I don't see how much longer this can actually go on, and I'm just really, really tired. And then you're saying that about yourself, and there is someone who's laying there in a bed who can hardly even move, who hasn't given up. Like
Yeah.
she literally had laid in bed for too long to where the bones in her pelvis had moved through the skin. And then if it keeps going, then it breaks open and she gets an infection. I mean,
Mhm.
there's so many other things that are happening and going on. It's not just that a person has Parkinson's, it's that they're laying
Mhm.
in the bed all the time and they need to be
Mhm.
turned, and then they have to wear diapers, and like all of
Mhm.
those other things that give you more
Mhm.
complications that you get, that you have to deal with. And that is always a constant. It is a constant having some, when you have a child and it's a little baby, and there's a constant thought about the little baby, and you always think about the little baby, but you always know that the little baby is safe. But now you have
Mhm.
someone who's sick, and they are now really a grown child that you're
Mhm.
having to deal with. And then your thoughts about yourself and what you're going through, and the guilt that you don't want to go through it anymore, even though they're willing to, because they're not willing to die. And like, you don't want them to, but it's a very,
Yeah.
I'm trying to say it without actually saying it. You're
I
not
get it.
wishing that someone goes, but the
Mhm.
the, the pain and the trauma of a day to day for years of things
Mhm.
just really grinds you.
I witnessed it when we were there,
Mm.
and she was a fighter. She was a fighter, man, and you were a fighter for her, even though you say, I wish I would have done things differently and I wish that I would have spoke up sooner. I saw you as a husband and a partner and a caregiver, and that was very inspiring to me. And that's a love that I think is rare and I think is beautiful. And she was a fighter, and I think that in itself is a win, right? And it kind of takes us to truth 8, is
Yes.
the small wins that keep you going.
Mm.
So after everything that you shared, I actually really love that you've put this in the book, because it's a reminder that survival isn't always, I don't want to say dramatic. It's just something, sometimes it's a good day, it's a smile, it's a moment of just connection, it's a moment of, I remember when we came to visit, there was a moment when you had Sasha's hands and you had taken her out in the pool to get some exercise. And there was
Mm.
this connection and this moment that you guys had. And I think for her, I could be
Mm.
wrong, but for her, she felt alive again and full, and I don't know, I just think thrilled, right? She was out of the bed, she was outside swimming. But anyways, there was this moment and where you just held her and she was swimming across the pool, and you back and forth and back and forth. I don't know if you talk about that in your book, but for me, looking from an outside perspective, it's such a small but big little win. And I know she
Mm.
looked forward to the swim days, didn't she? She
Yes,
loved the
yes,
swim days. But
yes.
take it from here, like truth 8. What does that section in the book mean? You want to, let's just elaborate on that for a second. What kept you going in those times too?
You know, it was really that final year when I was able to gain some clarity and let go of all of the past that I had to deal with. And that was one of the best years that she had had since she'd been sick. I was able to be there for her. I was able to like be normal me once again, which was, and I would sit there and just, like little things, like I would make fun of her, like she has Parkinson's. She'd be like, and I
Yeah.
would make fun of her. And
Uh-huh.
she thought it was hilarious too. Because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
at a certain point in time, these things are really funny. And you get
Mm-hmm.
you get to have these small little moments where you get to reconnect, and where the thing that you had becomes the thing that you still actually truly have. We still have that connection. We
Mm-hmm.
still had that. I was able to, I really didn't want to do it, but as I looked back on it, it was one of the hardest things that I ever did. But we love to travel. We've traveled all over the world, and I knew it was our last trip, and it was the year before the last year. So we went to Europe, we did a cruise, we met some friends of ours that live in Norway. So they came and they met us in England, and we did a cruise, and then we went a couple other places in Europe. And yeah, my wife, she really loved Game of Thrones, so we went to Croatia, and we saw castle and all that. So
I
we went
didn't
and
know that. I didn't
yeah,
know she loved Game of Thrones. Wow.
yeah,
That's what we should have
yeah.
been watching when we came to visit. I did not know that.
Yeah, so I
Wow.
had watched it a couple times. It was actually during COVID.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, since you have COVID, you might as well watch this. And I had already seen the whole thing a couple times. And I remember one night she ran into my office. She was like, oh my God, Aaron, if Jon Snow is dead, I'm not watching this thing anymore. Tell me now,
Uh-oh.
or I'm not gonna watch
Uh-oh.
it.
Oh boy.
And so I was like, no, he's still alive. She's like, okay, because I was done with
Hmm.
that. She really liked it. She enjoyed it. We really liked movies and we really loved traveling. So that last trip of for us was so exhausting because Europe is full of cobblestone, and so
Mm,
pushing a wheelchair across cobblestone all the time, getting in and out of taxis again, and doing that all the time every day. It was exhausting, but you know what? She got to go. We got to go and see things in places where we hadn't been before, and we got to marvel at them. We got to see them, and I got to enjoy them with her for like what I knew was going to be the last time. I really
mm,
got to. So yes, those little things are the wins. And for
yeah.
some strange reason, I don't know what it was, but on that trip, it was just for some reason a little bit easier. She slept just a little bit better and
Hmm.
didn't wake me up just as night, and things were just a little bit better during that time.
Mm,
So those are the wins that you get to take with you, those things that you get to share with that person. And she saw what we were building and she
mm.
wanted to be a part of it. And that made me feel good too.
Yeah, that's so special. And even though I wasn't there, I can only imagine her face, right? Like she was the queen, of all of the
Hmm.
things. In the
Hmm.
wheelchair, she is the queen in the wheelchair. And
Oh yeah.
she's,
Mhm.
I mean, but what a beautiful moment for you guys. I can only imagine just looking at her in some of the moments and trying to take in the scenery and the experience and the journey through her eyes too. It's such a beautiful thing. And absolutely, that might be one of the top wins. We say it's a small win, but to be able to gift her that in her final moments and to share, that's amazing. That's beautiful. Let's go into truth number 9. What I do differently if I could. Talk about that.
Well, what I would do differently is
Because
I would have.
I think what you say right here, I think the truth that you're going to bring number 9, I think it's going to stop a lot of listeners in their tracks because if they're going through something similar to this, right? And you're like, this is what I would have done differently if I could. There's a lot of people right now that are in the middle of their caregiving journey and they don't know what they don't know, right? So what advice would you give them?
The advice I would give is try your best to get all of the information and knowledge that you can on what the issues are with Parkinson's,
Mm,
and then look for alternative forms of medical help to help you, because the present medical system and how it's set up is not going to help you. It won't. I did not realize this,
mm,
but within the final months, because I trust the guy in the white and this edifice that's all in white and this thing that means health. I trust it. And I didn't read anything, and every one of those medications that she took give you symptoms of Parkinson's. So should you really be taking that?
mm,
I basically just burnt out her dopamine center. It's
mm-hmm,
gone. You have to take the medication, but now you get Parkinson's symptoms from it. So the medication is giving it to you. Okay, well, there has to be something that can help you. And those things have existed for a while. If I would have known something about, say, Muse cells, because
mm-hmm.
Muse cells are a stem cell that will pass the blood-brain barrier. Oh, well, okay, well, yes, I will try that instead of giving $100,000 to a doctor who's going to open up your head and then drop a couple of probes that are going to shock your brain into helping you to be able to have better motor function. But the truth is, when you go back and you look at them, it causes brain damage when they put them in there too, which is
Mm.
something that they don't talk about. Yes, well, this particular doctor did that. Okay, well, do you want that? Well, I'd rather not take that chance. I'd rather go through in fact, if it was just regular stem cells, I would rather do that than spend the money for something that really did not work very well and that I think made her have much more of a rapid decline. And obviously, in her brain cognition, I would have done things a lot more differently. I would have sat down and I would have said, listen, this is what you're looking at. If you take this medication right here, she wanted things to be to where she didn't feel any symptoms at all. So if I take this medication, I only feel half good instead of full good. But it will kick your lifespan for maybe another year of having a decent life. But she would rather not feel the symptoms
Okay.
than it would be for a shorter period of time and there's no new medication. So I would have done, yes, as far as my looking into it, as far as my searching out for other things earlier before doing that deep brain stimulation, I would have never done that if I would have actually known. I should have really looked at that and talked to other people who had had it done
Mm.
instead of just listening to someone say, hey, this is probably the best option for you. I
I
would have
think
done a
all of
lot
that
more.
makes sense. Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. Well, truth number 10 is the message that you need before it's too late. I think, man, for someone that's listening right now that's in the thick of it, or maybe somebody that's about to be, what do you think they need to hear most about this topic? Like, what is it? The message that you need before it's too late. I think you could probably go so many different directions here, but it's truth number 10 in your book for a reason. So elaborate on that one for us.
A lot of the problems and issues that we have with diseases today, there are so many of them that can be prevented by lifestyle changes of people. There's so many things that can be, or diseases that would not even exist if our food, air, water, plants, our earth, and everything were not polluted. And if
Mm-hmm.
your body were not constantly fighting off inflammation. What I have come to learn is that a body that is full of inflammation, which we don't talk about, but a body full of inflammation is really easy for cancer to hide in because inflammation is your body's way of telling you, hey, there's an issue here. But if you have a
Right.
body full of inflammation, your body doesn't know that there's cancer right here. It just knows the whole body's inflamed and I'm trying to get rid of the inflammation everywhere. So now cancer has the ability to be able to grow, but you have your own cells in your body that are very good at fighting
Mm-hmm.
cancer. And I know that the diseases that we have that seem to be all of a sudden just lots of diseases all at once with lots of people. And how did this happen? Well, there's always a reason for everything happening. And there's never a just quickly. I'm reading in the news about how there are people who are simply just dying. Well, that's not true. There was a reason why they died. You're just
Mm-hmm.
not saying what the reason is. You don't just die.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why you died. They're saying,
Mm-hmm.
what? Well, this person just mysteriously died.
Yeah.
No, your heart stopped beating, or you stopped breathing, or something happened. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason for that to have happened that caused it. And I really truly believe that every single problem and issue that we have, as far as diseases and mental health and physical health, all are curable. And they're not curable by some magic pill that somebody cooked up somewhere. They're curable by us being better human beings. They're curable by us getting back to what we're supposed to be, and they're curable by us getting things that are natural. You have cells in your body that kill cancer. You have cells in your body that repair itself. The
Yep.
fact that you have mu cells that will cross the blood-brain barrier and then also repair the brain, nobody talks about that, and they've been around since 2013. If I
Mm-hmm.
would have known about that, my wife would have definitely gotten that. Is it
Mm-hmm.
something that will 100% cure her? Well, I don't know. But so far, the improvement has been so astronomical. And the fact that no one wants to talk about that there are lots of things available for you outside of your traditional medical structure. What I want to say is do not be afraid to pick up a phone and call. Do not be afraid to go to another country. Do not be afraid to do everything that you can for your loved one. And you do not have to accept the standard medical procedure that's simply going to say, you know what? You've probably got a good maybe 4 or 5 years left. Let's see how good those 4 or 5 years are going to be. But I can't imagine a doctor that wakes up every morning and goes to work and that does not have a cure for what he deals with on a day-to-day basis. That is blows my mind. Like you are actually going to go to work every day for the rest of your life with no way of curing what you're, how is that a doctor? Sorry, kind of going off script. That's how I
No.
feel about that. Like, I don't understand how that could feel for those people who do
Hmm.
that. So, yes, try everything and don't be ashamed and don't feel bad. Like, never
Hmm.
feel bad for what you've done for your loved one. Don't feel
Hmm.
bad about it. You
Hmm.
can't, because we're all trying to do the best that we can. And there is hope out there for everyone who has this disease and symptoms like that, because everything outside of your normal traditional hospital and medical system are lots of very smart and very intelligent people that are looking at ways of fixing the problem and not just the symptoms. And those people are in Mexico, those people
Hmm.
are in Japan, those people are in Europe. So if you're listening to this and you're in the United States, you're going to get better medical care for those things outside of the United States, unless you have millions of dollars.
Right. And you don't have to apologize for going off track or anything like that, Aaron. You're fired up and you're passionate. And I think that's exactly why people need to grab the book. And, as far as Viarta Vitality is concerned, doesn't it feel so empowering to know that you have not only a book that's coming out, but you have Parkinson's protocols? You have all types of different protocols that we've designed internally to help people with this. So this has become a mission, right, to impact and support so many people. So you just get fired up as much as you want. Like I think it's great. But let's close this up today. I think for myself, any of our listeners, I'll speak for all of us. Thank you for having the courage to open up. You said it earlier in the podcast that men don't typically open up. They don't ask for help. And they're not the typical like caregivers, right? So it means a lot to me. And I'm honored to interview you, by the way. But it means a lot to me. And I think there's a lot of people out there that appreciate you for being open. And thank you so much for writing this book. It's going to impact so many lives around the world. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find this book? I know it's not out yet, but tell everybody where they can find it, and then we'll close up.
It is not out yet. It will be
Okay.
out soon, within a week or so. It will be available on Amazon.
Okay, beautiful. Awesome. Well, I hope that I get a signed copy, right? When it goes to
Absolutely.
physical print. Yeah. Well,
100%. Yes.
thank you so much, Aaron. And thanks to everyone for listening today to Viarta Vitality. If this episode touched you, please share it with a friend. Share it in your stories, share it with a neighbor. And because here's the thing, there's somebody in your life that really needs to hear this message today. And if it's not somebody in your immediate circle, like Aaron said, what was it, 30%, Aaron?
Yeah, 31%.
31%. So you never know who you can touch. So until next time, our friends, keep choosing wellness, keep choosing love, and keep shining bright. Aaron, thank you so much. And thanks to all of our listeners. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, Nikki.
Perfect.
All